Hey, Sox fans, welcome back to Good Guys Talk Back. I am Nick Murawski. This is a fan-centric Chicago White Sox podcast. This is episode 241. Try to do this live on Sunday nights on our YouTube channel. Subscribe, pass it along to other Sox fans in your life. The audio is available everywhere. Got some stuff to get to on personnel decisions, some coaches, which is big for us that we're going to talk about that we're removed.
This is the show we've been waiting for all year, Nick.
Absolutely is. And then, this is a tough episode. We've been doing this episode every year, since we've been doing this podcast, few weeks after the season where we kind of have to admit to our faults, to our predictions that went horribly wrong. There were some successes, few of those, but a lot of swings and misses. And if you're available to jump in the comments, please add yours to the list. We'll try to get to them. But with me, as always, my very good friend, diehard Sox fan, Pat Hester. Hello, sir.
Buddy, it's good to be with you. And it's everybody's favorite time of year. What former White Sox are you rooting for in the playoff season? Which is fantastic. It's fun. Yeah. I'm rooting for Jose Abreu. Okay. Even though he's with the dreaded Astros, they're playing the dreaded Twins. So
that's a tough series to pick. Really? Yeah. So it's you're not just go Jose Abreu, you're all the way go Astros.
Oh, anti-Astros or anti-Twins rather.
Anti-Twins. And you're pulling for Abreu and the Astros.
It'd be nice, right? It'd be nice to see Jose win. That would be fun, right? I could live with that.
Yeah, but it comes with the whole Astros have to win. Then does that make sense?
I mean, what else can we do at this point, Nick? I mean, what else do we have? Yeah. We have so little, Nick. We have so little to be excited about.
Phillies are an exciting team. And the Phillies are what I was hoping, maybe the Sox looked like. I'm not the first one to say it, but there's a lot of players on that ball club that were rumored that should have been with the Chicago White Sox. Obviously, Bryce Harper is the big fish, but so many others. Speaking of fish, I was pulling for Berger, of course. Mm-hmm. Wanted to see Jake Berger do well with the Marlins. The Orioles are they're just a fun team. They're a young team. You and I have seen that team up close and personal. I think it was last season where, man, they just have an amazing defense. Outfield is just fast. Nothing falls to the ground. And, they got some guys that can hit. So, I'm watching. I'm still watching, but it's tough. It's still tough right now, just to see these teams that – have got such young talent and they're in the postseason over and over because they've been able to do it right and develop and add. And, it's just, we were kind of like one and done and that's it.
Well, I guess there's always next year. We just have the plan of once every 15 years or so, we'll be right there. So it is a little bit tough, but I still enjoy playoff baseball. I still get kind of excited about it and watching it is, October, it's got that feel. I still like it, Nick. It's especially when you're watching a brand of baseball where, teams are obviously very talented, as you mentioned, with watching the Orioles, even though they're down 2 games in their series and they got a long road to hoe here to come back and win a 5-game series. But it's fun to watch teams that do it the right way and you just kind of go, oh, that's how it should look, huh? That's how baseball should actually look. And but part of me also just thinks, boy, just get me through the World Series. Let's get the real offseason going and see what direction Chris Getz and his singular mindset takes his team.
Yeah, good point by Tyler in the comments. Yeah, Graveman too on that Astros team. Forgot about that.
Yes,
and the flurry of moves that were made by the Sox at the deadline. Forgot Graveman went back.
Beloved
to the
Kendall
Astros.
Graveman. I wonder if he's able to pitch 2 days in a row, or is he got to take his?
I don't know what his policy
once
is.
in a while. I just whenever I feel like it type of.
I don't know what his postseason policy is, his workload management, but how about those Diamondbacks too? And that's a team that I wonder. How much did the new assistant, I believe, GM Barfield, Josh Barfield, how much did he have? How much involvement did he have with that young team? But they jumped all over Kershaw yesterday. Oh my goodness! And they did it to the Northsiders. They did it to our White Sox in September. They are a young, fun team.
Yeah, young and fun, but can it be sustainable? So it's fun to watch these teams as they pop up. And I still I don't worry too much about the Dodgers. I feel like they've done this in the past in the playoffs. They get one bugaboo out of the way and they just kind of turn it on from there. They're a team that's got a history of being able to flip a switch, if you will. But they've also been heavily favored in series 2 in the past and really laid an egg. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. But once you have momentum and you have a team like the Diamondbacks that had to win, right, Nick? They had to continue to win and perform, and they had that momentum. Those are the scariest teams coming into the playoffs, is when you've had to actually overcome and not just, they didn't just squeak in, but they had something to play for down the stretch. And I think that goes a long way for how you at least start out the playoffs. It may not be sustainable for long enough. It might catch up to you, and you may not have as good a starting pitching staff as your opponents. But getting into the playoffs and having momentum means a lot nowadays.
Yeah, I think back to the 2021 White Sox team, obviously the division winner, and our the crown jewel of this rebuild, the one division championship, and it just did not look good the last few weeks going into the postseason. It just feel like everyone was running on gas. There's some injuries. Rodon wasn't obviously hit himself. There's other guys that were playing in uncharted territory in terms of games logged and all that kind of stuff. And we just kind of we gassed in there and got outmanaged, outplayed, everything by the Astros a couple seasons ago. So I do believe in momentum. I do believe in that coming in, clicking on all cylinders. The lineup's looking good. Everybody's gelling. You're feeling it. And with a little bit of what you had said, some urgency too. Playing with a little bit of urgency, and it's difficult to manifest urgency when you've locked things up. But that's where I think a good manager and a good coaching staff comes into play, and some veterans that have been there. Of hey, let's keep putting the pedal to the metal here, because it's not just about a division championship. We want more.
Well, I think that's an interesting way to approach the season. If Pedro's listening, for next year,
Sure.
If there is a plan on contention, how do you do the workload management to where you're not, where at the end of the season, you really are relying on your guys to perform and not taking whether you're, not that they will, but whether you've secured the division or not early on or not, do you continue to push guys and play guys, and that risk and reward factor of, well, they might get hurt. I don't think in professional sports anymore, Nick, you can really play scared. It's when you play scared is when injuries happen. It happens all the time. I'd rather see guys, if you want to, I'd rather see them push them early, get them out, get them pushed early, get them going, and then maybe find time in June and July to get guys some breaks, and then right back to pushing them again. I don't know if that makes any sense to you or not, but this early in the season where it's like, okay, you start, stop, snip, snap, and right.
Yeah.
So I think that really has hurt us in the last couple of years. It's like, okay, you get going, we get out of spring, and then we got to reel you back in because we got to workload manage, and then you got to push you back out again, and it's all this back and forth. It's like we got to hit the ground running next year and just go and not have these, April collapses that our season ends before it gets started.
Yeah, I agree in that, and I agree with all of that, and I think that we'll touch on that when we get to our predictions, our failed predictions, our swings and misses, and our few successes, because I have some, that falls in my column, with that urgency stuff that I thought was going to be very different. But before we get to how bad we did predicting this team in the off season, and we're probably not alone, but we're gonna lean into all of that. There were some changes in the coaching staff since the last time we talked. Hitting coach Jose Castro hardly even knew you, and first base coach Teflon Daryl Boston will not return to the White Sox and Pedro Grifol's staff in 2024. Assistant hitting coach Chris Johnson, after one season following a promotion from the minors, he gone. He's going to be reassigned. And that is Kurt Hassler also reassigned. We talked about in the last episode, but a lot of folks excited for Chris Johnson. We saw what players was happening to them when they would go down to the minors and, eventually come back up to the big league club. And all right, Chris Johnson's up here. We'll see what's going to go on. Jose Castro coming from the Braves. Wow. Look at what the Braves can do. Look at what their launch angle, look what they're doing in terms of hitting the ball out of the ballpark. We got guys that can do that. Here with this White Sox team in 2023. Wow, the amount of articles that I read in the offseason and talked about it on Locked On and his viewpoint. And I did reach out to somebody in the offseason that did Locked On Atlanta Braves as soon as this Jose Castro thing was announced. And I said, what can you tell me about Jose Castro? I'm kind of excited. We got this guy coming in from the Braves. And the host, and I forgot his name, from the Locked On Atlanta Braves was like, you know what? I don't even know who that is. I don't really, he's like, the first time I'm really hearing about that name. I don't think it meant much to us.
I'm really excited about this guy. I don't even know who that is. That's great.
So when I heard that, I was like, well,
so not a glowing report then.
Yeah, maybe Castro wasn't the reason for success with Atlanta, but he's gone. But the big one, Pat, in my mind, is Daryl Boston. We've been talking about him as so many others for a lot of different reasons for a long, long time. And from what I read, it sure sounded like Kenny Williams was keeping him around. There was a relationship there. Daryl Boston was Kenny's guy. And once Kenny was gone, he had nobody to protect him. Grifol, of course, inherited Daryl Boston, and we made light of this.
A lot of people have, yeah. A lot of people have inherited Daryl Boston.
And we talked about it last season of like all these changes. Grifol's able to bring in all these different guys, but don't mess with Daryl Boston. Well, that's not the case anymore. He is gone, apparently well-liked, good camaraderie in the clubhouse, all this other nonsense, but come on, if you're going to make changes, like what is he really doing? Like what is a first base coach really doing?
If I understood it correctly, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but he was in charge of the outfield, right? He was in charge of the guys and the way they defended in the outfield, if memory serves. And we've had one of the worst outfield defensively since I can remember, Nick. I mean, it's just been a comedy of errors. So a lot of it falls on the players and maybe their athleticism and their ability to play those positions and being played out of position because of, the upper management not willing to make moves to address an entire right field for so many years. But I digress. The outfield play was horrendous. And if that falls at the feet of Daryl Boston to make sure those guys are doing what they should do to at least be adequate, then I think this is long overdue. And it's really a shame that guys in this organization have been able to keep their jobs because of relationships, not because of results. And Daryl Boston is just another guy in this. And Kenny Williams was one of those guys, right? He had stayed with this team for a long time because of the relationship he had with Jerry Reinsdorf, not because of the production that he had. So it's nice to see, and you and I joke about it. It's like Daryl Boston, what is that really going to change in the future for this team? But it's confounding. I think he was also in charge. Wasn't he also in charge of base running? Was that the other?
He was not last year though. He was in 2022.
So the two things that this team was just god awful at for years: outfield defense and base running. That's at his feet for the most part over the last several years, and he got to keep his job. So the fact that we finally moved on from that. I mean, you and I are joking about it, and it's probably we're making more of it than it should be. But I just think it shows the ridiculousness of this organization to keep a guy just because of relationship, and he was in charge of two things that we were terrible at for years.
What former Kansas City Royal? Who's coming from the KC organization to fill that void at first base? That'll be the big question. I can't wait for that to happen, actually. So we
I
can
am
chop
looking
that up.
forward to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was, like I said, I was on assignment at Kansas City. I did a lot
Mike
of interviews with
Sweeney, is Mike
people.
Sweeney
Oh, I'd
available
love
to
to bring a
maybe?
Mike Sweeney. I mean, who wouldn't want to have a Mike Sweeney part of your organization? I
Yeah.
mean, traditionally a Sox killer. So if you brought him on as a
Absolutely.
coach, I mean,
Absolutely.
boom, goes the dynamite. There you
Yeah.
go. Win the
Yeah.
division by at least 5 games.
Let's talk about predictions and divisions and individual stuff. And I made a whole list here, Pat, and I think we'll start with our with the ugliness, because there weren't too many successes. I could not list very many, and I was really reaching for some of the
So
successes.
you wrote all these down when we did these predictions way back when. This is
I
this
did,
all from
but
memory, or did you go back and watch the tape?
No. I went back and I listened to, or I went through some of the lockdown stuff that I did, because I was making predictions nonstop, man. That's all you do on lockdown. When it's a daily podcast in like the middle of winter, you're just making, predictions constantly. So I had a lot of predictions that I was making, and I was so off with them. But we traditionally write it down, but I just, I kind of went from memory, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember I was talking about this guy or this team, what the team's going to do and everything. So do you want me to start, or do you want to start with?
No,
this is Murawski. Yeah, I'm sorry. That one caught me off guard. Yeah. A little bit of both, a little bit of White Sox and Royals. All right, I'm going to start here. I'm going to go big. I'm going to go reverse pyramid on you. I'm going to go with this was my big miss. And I could go team, but I'm going to go individual because I was so upset. This was such a big miss, is Michael Kopech. I talked about Michael Kopech so many times. Leading up to the season on lockdown, we had talked about Michael Kopech. I've been talking about him for years. I'm like, I think he's finally healthy. He seems to be right this offseason. And I thought 30 starts for Michael Kopech. 30 starts. I'm going to go pretty bullish. And that wasn't really using my head. I was just using my heart. I'm like, I hope this happens for him. I want to see this happen for him. So I thought 30 starts, maybe 150, 160 innings. Could he get to 170 innings, which is like flirting with Dylan Cease territory, but maybe 150, right? He ended with 120, led the American League with 91 walks, started 27 games, which he had 25 in 2022. And he got messed around with. He was sent to the bullpen. There was just some weird cryptic stuff of, well, maybe he's got the stuff to be in the bullpen. We like that, but he should really have the mindset of a starter. I mean, what they're trying to do to him, I don't know. He was a mess. I mean, how many games did he leave early? And just his post-game comments were, I mean, he just looked like he was in a trance. He had no idea and he had no answers. So I'm going to start with Michael Kopech on that.
Well, that's a good place to start because it was so horrifically bad for him for the majority of the season from the start of it. Really, I think his first start against San Francisco when balls were just going out of guaranteed rate at a fever pitch. So that's a good place to start. I think if I remember correctly, Eloy Jimenez, I had him down for over 40 home runs. And remind me how many he had in the season. If you don't, I think it was it 10?
No, I think he had 10? He had in the high teens. He might have hit 18 home runs this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 18 home runs versus well over, I think, and I'm pretty sure I was pretty bullish as I've learned to be as a White Sox fan. I'm very bullish on Eloy Jimenez hitting 40 home runs. And I think I probably predicted both 40 for him and Luis Robert. Now, Lou Bob was obviously closer. I think we finished with 38 before he went out with the injury at the end of the year. But I think I predicted both of them over 40 home runs. And maybe I was drunk at the time. Maybe I should have maybe next year I should make sure I'm sober when I do predictions.
Well, we all drank up the Eloy stuff. I absolutely thought it was going to be lightning and thunder. I talked about Eloy and Luis Robert Jr. as the lightning and thunder. If they could both play 80% of the games, if not more, watch out. Oh my goodness, watch out. They're going to be unstoppable. So I had Eloy on my list too. So I'll add a little bit to what you had because I was really disappointed. I mean, Eloy played in 120 games. So it's nearly 80%. nearly, not quite. Okay, but still, it's a lot of games for Eloy Jimenez. 120, 36 more than what he played in 2022. He had 162 more plate appearances this season than the previous season. But where was the power? That's what I'm asking. Where was the power? He only had 2 more home runs and only 2 more walks. I mean, the offense numbers were down across the board, and he played in more games. A lot of ground balls in the double plays. Hey, when he gets a hold of one, it's majestic, right?
Yeah.
It's effortless. He does have a beautiful swing. And, it looks like, man, if you just make contact, this ball's flying out of the ballpark. I'm not happy because he was DHing. I don't know, but I mean, close to 80% of the games, and you didn't increase much in your power. That was really disappointing.
Big disappointment there. I'll go next again since you added on with Eloy. I'm almost positive I predicted Tim Anderson to hit over 300 again this year, and he finished with 245. So not quite the TA that we've been used to. Zero power again from a Tim Anderson this year. I'm sure that whether we talk about it this episode or maybe in the future as we get into the off season, the future of Tim Anderson will be interesting to watch and where that leads. But just to, along with a long list of other White Sox who had terribly underperforming seasons and disappointing seasons, Tim Anderson right at the top of that because he was supposed to be the spark of our team, right, Nick? We talked a lot about coming into this season without Jose Abreu, the aforementioned Jose Abreu with the Astros now. This is Tim Anderson's team really as a leader, and he's going to be not only the straw that stirs the drink, but he's going to be leading the team from the front now as you lose a big leader in Jose Abreu. So how is he going to handle that? And whether he didn't fit that role as a leader the way that we needed him to or not, or it was just his personal life got too much for him to overcome. And I'm not saying that it should be easy to overcome either. I'm just saying it just didn't happen for him. Maybe that all kind of culminated in this year where it just bubbled over and the walls caved in on him from all sides. So actually 245 is a little bit higher than I thought he was going to be when I just looked it up a second ago, but I know that predicted him again to hit over 300 and maybe even challenge for a batting title. So way off on that prediction.
And the power, I mean, almost zero power. The defense has never been there.
And not just power, like regarding hitting the ball over the fence, like hitting doubles, right?
Sure.
The power wasn't there hitting to the gaps. It was his hits were seemingly just singles all the time to the other side. It was nothing in the gaps, nothing down the line. It wasn't a lot of doubles, certainly no triples. So not just power and hitting the ball out of the ballpark, just power to the gaps, really.
Yeah, I didn't have Anderson on my list. I don't really think I made too many predictions about him. Honestly, it was more, will this guy stay with the White Sox? Everything surrounding the impending, contract and what he has said. But will the Sox really make him the first $100 million man? I think maybe now that I'm talking myself into it, I focused a lot of that in the offseason on, well, there's this, Sox have yet to give somebody, sign somebody $100 million. Could Anderson be that guy? Could be the face of the franchise? And now I don't think so. I really don't think so. But in terms of different numbers and stuff, I kind of knew what you were going to get with this guy. I just felt like, look, and I don't want to dog on him. Like for a while there, he was one of the more electric players that we could remember in recent, in recent memory from the Sox fan perspective of, wow, this guy is like on national commercials. This guy is like wants to be the face of baseball. He can do it with the bat. You're not going to see the defense, but there were all these other facets of the game. He just had that edge about him. And, that is gone. That has gone to the wayside. So I don't know what's going to happen with him in the offseason, what the Sox are going to decide moving forward. But I didn't have a lot on numbers with him, so I'll just let that lie. My other big player that I really focused a lot on was Andrew Vaughn. I came out and I was such an Andrew Vaughn believer. This guy is going to have first base. He's not going to have to worry about playing out of position and this, that, and the other. And I thought, well, okay, he might not have to carry the team because there'd be other guys that are probably going to be filling in that role of carrying the team. And he's going to fit into a nice spot, kind of quietly, continue to mature, better looks at the plate, finding his role. He doesn't quite need to be the guy of like, we need Andrew Vaughn. Man, if Andrew Vaughn doesn't hit 25, 30 home runs this year, I don't know where this team, he wasn't there yet. That wasn't going to be him, but I thought he was going to make major strides and really have a heck of a year. Now he played in 152 games, Pat. And you and I were worried about his injuries. We were worried that, his back was really going to, there was going to be problems there where he was going to have to sit out. But he played in 152, 18 more than in 2022. Slash line OPS were down, he did go from 17 home runs up to 21 home runs. And I think that's if you're looking at anything for Andrew Vaughn, it's like, okay, he got over 20 home runs. He got into that category. But there's just way too many moments where there were big opportunities and he's just beating the ball into the ground or, unproductive outs. And, of course you're not going to be the hero every single time, but it felt like in watching, 90% of the games, 80% of the games, the rest maybe on the radio, he had opportunities. He had more than a handful of opportunities. And it just didn't feel like, that eye test of he was going to make the big leap that I was hoping that he would make, coming out of the shadow. But I did know it was going to be a tough task for him. You had to fill in for Jose Abreu now. You're the new first baseman. And when everybody else is scuffling, which ended up being that's how it was in 2023, well, your scuffling is magnified even more.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, Andrew Vaughn, you and I both had, big hopes for him this year and really not coming out of his shell, but turning into the player that we've been hearing that he could be, hitting that potential ceiling that we've been hearing about for years. And this guy's an automatic hitter and almost the untouchable in terms of a trade. You can't touch Andrew Vaughn. I mean, I remember having conversations with people like, well, the what if scenarios. What if we were able to get this guy and this guy, but the trade would be Andrew Vaughn? Oh no, we can't put Andrew Vaughn in.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
We can't let this guy go. That looks a little silly nowadays. I'll move over to the mound and I'll say Dylan Cease. I don't think I predicted him winning the Cy Young just because it's hard to do. It's hard to win a Cy Young. But I think I predicted he'd finish at least in top 3. And as it stands right now, I don't think there's any chance of him being finishing in the top 3 in terms of Cy Young awards. So, that will remain to be seen. But I mean, what a year for a Dylan Cease. And we were really concerned about, if he continues to pitch like this, how can we afford a Dylan Cease? He's going to be gone sooner rather than later. We're never going to be able to sign this guy and keep this guy. And then after game 1, it was really an average or below average for most days for Dylan Cease. Reverted back to a lot of bad habits in terms of throwing a lot of pitches, not making it through 4 or 5 innings. And it was really not the dominant Cease that we had become accustomed to in the year before. So the fact that he didn't even, not even the fact that he's not going to crack the top 10 in terms of Cy Young Award. I had him finishing in the top 3, and that's not even going to become close. So
yeah,
that was way off.
I had Dylan Cease on my list, but I had it as kind of a success for me in terms of predictions because I thought he was going to take a little bit of a step back. Heavy is the head that wears the crown, and I know he didn't win the Cy Young, but awfully close. I mean, his numbers were outstanding in 2022. Came very, very close to winning that Cy Young, and it's tough to repeat. It's tough to get right back into that category when the bullseye is on your back. The opposing team knows you're the number one. They want to get to you. You're not going to catch people off guard. You have to be so razor sharp. You can't have off days. Your stuff has to be working. All of your stuff has to be working to get back into 2022 form. So, I mean, he was 7-9. 7-9, and I know wins and losses obviously does not mean anywhere what it used to be 20 years ago, or even more. But here's a good thing about Dylan Cease. He takes the ball, man. This guy doesn't get hurt. 30 plus starts once again, led the league for the second time in 3 years. Led the American League in terms of starts for the second time in 3 years. 170 plus innings once again. 79 walks though. The walks is a problem. That probably would have led the league if it wasn't for Kopech's 91. The 4.58 ERA, almost 2 full points higher than what he had in 2022. He had that 2.20 ERA in that runner-up Cy Young season, where he had 180 plus innings and he was 14-8. So, I mean, those are outstanding numbers in 2022. And I just had a feeling he's probably going to step back a little bit. I didn't think it was going to be as bad, but your silver lining is that he takes the ball, man. The guy takes the ball.
Yeah. I mean, that's commendable, right? You need to have innings from guys and have some reliability there. But, I mean, if he could have been a 3.5 ERA guy, a full, almost 1.5 higher than last year. Boy, I would have taken that. I'd like to see
over 200 strikeouts once again. He was not near his 2022 number, but he is a strikeout pitcher, and he's going to walk a lot of guys. But he got roughed up, man.
Yeah,
he got roughed up, and I'll think back to a spring training game against the Royals where he got really roughed up. And it was kind of getting close, I think, to opening day. And it was just something going on here. And he brushed it off as he should. It's spring training. But he had that, he bounced, he got right back there in Houston, man, and he took care of business. But then, as you had mentioned at the beginning of this Cease talk, kind of just so.
Well, the big talk in 2022, Nick, was the whole, and I don't remember all the stats because I'll never remember that stuff, but the missing of bats. He just misses bats.
Oh yeah.
And it just seemed like this year I'd like to, because they keep stats on this stuff, that the barrel rate, right? Right. How many times guys are being able to barrel him up? Because a lot of times it wasn't just like, little blue pits here and there. He was getting squared up pretty good. I don't know what you can attribute that to, but it wasn't the missing of the bats and the weak, fly balls and ground balls. It was guys really putting a charge and stuff this year on him.
So I'm going to now jump to just whole team stuff, and I'm going to just put Grifol into all this. And I drank the Kool-Aid, and I've talked about this openly. I drank the Kool-Aid, and I talked to people about it. I tried to convince them that, look, this White Sox baseball team is going to be better prepared in 2023. They're going to be fundamentally sound. We've got a manager that's going to sweat the small stuff. He's got them on a program, this like chunk in 5 days kind of stuff, how he operates. I bought into all of that, all the stuff that he was talking about, which I'm kind of giving, I'm hinting to the Pedro Grifol quote of the week that we'll unleash later in the episode.
Yes.
But we, all of that. It's like, this sounds different. This is refreshing. I love all of this. You're saying all the right things. And I bought into it, and I used that as I made my prediction, which I predicted 90 wins. I predicted 90 wins for this 2023 team that lost 101 games. 90 wins. And I said, yeah, they could win the AL Central. They should win the AL Central. Look at their roster. Look at their lineup. And we've got the mastermind, Pedro Grifol, that wants to kick everybody's butt at 7-10, as soon as you get to the ballpark. So I bought into it. And that is right up there with Kopech. This was the other big just letdown. I missed on that. And I know I'm not the only one, but I'm owning up to that, because I said it loud and proud on Locked On, when I was guests on other shows, and on this podcast with you. Like, no, this team's going to be prepared. They're going to run the bases well. They're going to hit cutoff guys. They're going to win on the margins. That's what's going to happen this year. And that did not happen.
Well, unfortunately for you and I, Nick, I mean, they could have put a sack of potatoes in there, and as long as it wasn't Tony La Russa, it would have been like, oh, well, that'll be at least a difference of we were at 500 last year. Just having a different manager, that's 5 more wins. Right?
Yeah.
That's a 10 game swing, right? If you just remove Tony La Russa because he was so awful, that it doesn't matter who it is, as long as it's not him, we're gonna be better off. So anything that Pedro said was like, yeah, we were lapping it up like thirsty dogs, just in a bowl, just happy to be there. Oh, this is fantastic.
Yeah,
Keep talking,
true.
please, Pedro. Show us more videos of you calling Eloy Jimenez and talking to him about he's going to be a DH. We can't wait to talk about this guy because he's so fresh and different and great.
Yeah.
And he's got this long, wonderful journeyman's life of being a baseball.
And he was hungry
man.
to be a manager. He's been waiting for
Yeah.
this opportunity.
Couldn't wait to get there. And boy, was the moment too big for him. And it's just unfortunate that's the way it was. And I'll just go with the low hanging fruit in terms of my prediction on the team this year was 93 wins. So I was even worse than you were. This team won 61 games. How the hell could we be so off in our predictions, Nick? It's just unbelievable to think about because it wasn't, unless I'm like completely losing my mind. You had mentioned before about the games played by Eloy Jimenez. We had talked about the games played by Luis Robert Jr. We talked about the innings pitched by Dylan Cease. The guys that are supposed to be stars on this team were available majority of the season. They played the majority of the season. And
that core everybody wants to talk
the
about.
core,
Yeah.
this core. And Andrew Vaughn, you had mentioned the number of games played by him. And even though he had zero production, it was Yaz. I mean, Yaz played a lot of the season too, and we just found ways to keep him in the lineup, and it just was not there for him anymore. And it's just sad to think about. We really can't blame this year on massive injuries like we could in maybe other seasons or why we fell short. It was just complete lack of ability to play the game of baseball and manage your way out of a paper bag and get the most out of guys. So I don't remember a year that was full of more drama, more head scratching other than this one. I mean, the year before I thought took the cake, and this one, I guess that's the other prediction. It can't get any worse than it was in 2022. Yes, it can. And now the prediction will be, can it be worse in 2024?
Yes.
I can't wait to our prediction show. How many home runs for Eloy
I predict there won't be a prediction
I'll say
show.
7 home runs.
It's just, I think you end all the predictions. You got to think really long and hard if you actually want to do that, because at the rate things are going, and a lot can change. Right, we haven't even opened up off season, free agency, winter meetings, all this kind of stuff. There could be, a couple bizarre moves that are made that might change everything. Who knows? Elvis Andrus might want to come back, and we'll all go insane for a couple of weeks. But it just, what's the point, really? And I guess this goes in. I know people this time of year give letter grades out to everything. Like every position, every player gets a letter grade, and that's a very detailed, comprehensive way of doing things. And I respect the process of that. I can't. It makes no difference to me whether there's a C- or a D+ or an A or a B+. It's like the team failed. The team absolutely failed. Okay, F, failure. You did not meet any of your goals. And individually, there were very, very few successes, but I just can't take the time to give letter grades out to a team that lost 101 games. Just an absolute failure. There you go. There's your report card.
Well, I'd say the sod father, he gets an A. I'll give him an A again. Gene Honda, fantastic.
Sure.
Well done.
Gene.
Again, another
Yeah.
A+ for Gene.
Yeah.
Fireworks shows, good job. Good job on
Good
bobbleheads.
job. Everything went on.
Good job, bobbleheads.
Yeah. They could have a few more bobbleheads.
Well,
they really
B?
could.
You want to give a letter B? That's all. Food's still good. A?
Food's good.
Yeah.
I mean, food's good. I wish some of the really good stuff was more available, not just hidden in the club level.
Tell me more. What did you want more available?
I'll say, you know what? I'll save it for when I get my survey. I get the survey.
Oh,
so
yes.
I'll get the survey.
Can we fill out the survey live on the show together as a team, as a show, or is this? I know you take your surveys to heart, and you can't wait for a good survey to come
Well,
out.
and there's paragraph form. Some of these answers are narrative.
Our listeners would love to watch
Okay.
us write a paragraph.
Well, maybe I'll just report on, what I reported on. How's
Okay.
that?
Well, just remember we're going to need content throughout the winter.
Yeah,
Nick,
we are, man. I know
and don't throw away those prediction shows. That's a show. Okay. We got to have shows. All right.
Yeah, you're right. I shouldn't just.
We're doing everybody just relax out there. We're doing a damn prediction show.
I mean, when it gets to mid-November, January after the holidays, you're like, all right, here. Let's see. What can we?
We'll talk
Brian
about
Shaw. Let's do a whole Brian Shaw episode.
COVID. We did all kinds of great shows,
man. Thinking back to some of that, anybody filling content during those times, man, you get an award.
Go back and listen to some of our COVID shows. Those are some of their best shows right there, Nick. So,
well, anytime any new information came up about there might be a season or not, it was like, that's an episode, that's there's the rumor of what could possibly happen. So I'm going to go into the things that I felt like were maybe successes in terms of my predictions, unless you've got some more, if you want to keep rattling
on. No. I think we beat this horse to death long enough.
There's more. We could go. We really honestly,
the poor horse's brains are smashed on the pavement. Keep going.
And so these are a bit of a stretch, but I did not have a lot of successes at all when I thought back to my predictions. And some of them are so damn obvious. And I had to really say, all right, I'm going to give this one to myself. But one I wanted to talk about was, and this came later in the season. So this was like end of May. I didn't think this was going to be a possibility in the offseason. I can't claim this is an offseason. But I was on the Sox are going to trade Giolito. I was on that probably late May. I'd have to go back to maybe some of the exact episodes of Locked On. Definitely into June, when they were like 8-9 games back, 12 games under. They made a rally there, and they were like 3.5-4 games back at one point. I was like, but you're still like gross number of games under 500. It's the AL Central. But knowing the White Sox, being a fan forever, and knowing how they value pitching or don't value almost homegrown. Giolito wasn't homegrown. Talent, young pitching talent. They just don't. They don't give those big contracts. I don't think they value Giolito as a big contract guy, even though he was having a kind of a nice bounce back year. I thought for sure they're going to let this guy go. And then all the articles started coming out of even, the whisperer, Bob Nightingale, with even if the Sox are in contention, possibly, they're going to let Giolito walk at the end of the year. So the trade, I was telling people about this, and I was getting a lot of pushback. Like, don't you like Giolito? Don't you want pitching? I'm like, I do, but that's not what the White Sox do. You got to understand, they're going to trade him off. I didn't realize all the other, arms that were going to be gone, because then they just completely tanked. But so I'm gonna go with that one to kick things off.
Were you more shocked that Gio looked as bad as he did after the trade? Because you look at, like, once Lynn got traded, it seemed like he had improved. And is that more to say about, because obviously he went to the Angels and then later on to the Guardians. Maybe he'll get better with the Guardians, but maybe what does that say about the Angels organization? They're another, like, how do you have two of the best players in all of baseball and you just are as bad as you are? But
that's a good point. I was pretty surprised by that, because he's playing for a contract, right?
Yeah.
He's auditioning and to go in that direction. But there's a lot. He's a cerebral guy, and I don't want to make excuses for him, because I know he's not going to make any excuses. That's got to be a real head spin, man, to just all of a sudden, that whole drama of, are you going to be traded and shipped off? And I think there was some personal stuff. He might have gotten a divorce. Not to go too much into his personal life. It is what it is. But, he had a lot going on. I don't know. I guess that's where I can try to make an excuse for him. But performance-wise, I was really surprised by that. Yeah.
Yeah. I really don't have anything. I don't think I had a prediction this entire year that went in the way I thought it would go. I mean, I was
Okay, I've got a
trying to think
few. I've got a
I mean,
few.
I honestly, Nick, I mean, everything that I predicted, it was all sunshine and rainbows from the start. And talking about this team winning 93 games and not really running away with the division. I thought they'd win by a good amount and they'd pull away at the end, and we'd be talking about the Sox in the playoffs at this point. I had no idea that it would be as disastrous as it was for as many players as it was, except for Luis Robert Jr., which I guess that would be my only prediction, that he would have the type of season that we had pined for, right? And it was like, and
That
it
was
was always with
my
the asterisk of,
yeah.
well, barring any kind of major injury, barring this, barring that. And he stayed away from that for the most part the entire year, and he showed exactly what we thought we would get, and he was able to overcome the dysfunction of the Chicago White Sox. Now, really, the where he goes from here is, we talk about lack of leadership. Your best players have to be your leaders. He is your best player. He has to find a way to turn himself into some sort of leader, because when you have the best players in your clubhouse being the leaders in your clubhouse, and not guys that are like Tim Anderson that are batting 245, people are going to listen to the guy that's doing the things that he does. So if he's going to continue to grow in his career and be the superstar that we think he can be, he's got to add on more to his plate and be more of a leader and galvanize this team on a day in and day out basis. But I'll step back and say that's the only prediction I had right, was that he would have somewhat close to an MVP caliber type season.
Yeah, and that's the no-brainer, right? I even feel bad taking credit for that. I mean, everybody had that on their
Yeah.
bingo card of, if Luis Robert Jr. played in 80% of the games, it's going to be good. You know, he's going to have some solid offensive numbers. He played in 90% of the games this season.
It's almost
90%.
I'm shocked by that.
He led in every offensive category for the White Sox. He was tied with Vaughn with 80 ribbies. But, you know, exactly what we were saying at the beginning of the year. And I know we're not the only ones. When you say, hey, if this guy could stay on the field, if he could play in 80+% of the games, awesome stuff is going to happen. 38 home runs. And, you know, his season was unfortunately cut short due to injury, but he still played in 90% of the games and did some serious damage, you know, and put really the league on notice of what this guy can do. And again, I don't know if it's a retool, a rebuild, whatever, but this is the guy that you try to build around. And can the Sox do it? Can the Sox do this? Because that's somebody that you want to build around.
It'll be interesting to see how they view it. Do you have the resources and the ability in the short term to really build around this guy, or does he become the piece that helps you rebuild for the next Luis Robert Jr., right? Where's the next Luis Robert Jr. that you can build around in 3 or 4 or 5, 6 years?
Yeah, I don't know. He is something special. One of my, you know, vague, I thought I hit on this was, you know, when Pedro Grifol was hired, and I was a little, you know, I bought into the things that he was saying, but there was also part of me to play like the other side of the coin, devil's advocate, so to speak. Players might not respect that resume. Players might not automatically just stop whatever they're doing and buy into his message.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what have you done, Pedro Grifol? Who are you? You know, if we weren't going to listen to Tony La Russa in 2022, we're not going to be listening to you and what you have to say from the Kansas City Royals. And it turned out that way. You know, I mean, reports came out. I mean, reports have come out. People have said things that he kind of just lost the clubhouse. You know, he did not know how to get things back on track. And it just sounds like he could not command the attention of these White Sox players. Who can, I don't know, but maybe somebody with a little bit more of a history, a background, successful background than Pedro Grifol's.
If you lose the clubhouse in one season, can you regain it and start afresh anew the next season with a lot of the same guys, assuming a lot of the same guys are going to be here? It'd be interesting to, like, okay, is there going to be a come to Jesus moment where they all get together and go, listen, guys, we lost each other, right? You lost me, I lost you. We're here again next year. How do we make it work? And I just don't know if you can. I don't know if I've ever heard of managers that have lost the locker room, survived the year and kept their jobs, and were able to regain it for the next year. Right? The
They
guys
need,
that lose the locker room are the guys that get fired.
yeah, this guy, they need to go to like a high ropes course or something. They need to go to some sort of like White Pines team building, like, hey, how can we all fit on this like wooden box? If you've ever had like an office job where they bring in, these experts, these team building experts,
Mhm.
trying to do all these different strategies and
Trust falls. A lot of trust falls.
just funds. It just that's what Camelback
I
ran.
would
They,
love
they
to
need
do
to
a
do
trust
just
fall.
a
Me and
bunch of
you
trust falls.
tell Pedro,
They need to
you
do
got good
like
guys talk back. We got your
the
back.
I just that is the only way I could think that he will regain some of this is if he tries to, like you said, that they buy into themselves and they build some unity and he guides the building process. He's the one that's facilitating all of this, but it's player led. Players are telling them this is where our blind spots were. This is where, things went wrong. And Pedro's like, okay, I've got strategies. I've got different challenges for us, how we can bond and how we can do this. Thank you for bringing that message to me. So this is your thing, but I am going to be the one facilitating it with my coaching staff here. That's just something that I don't know how realistic it is,
Hmm.
but that's the only thing I can think of right now.
I just wonder if in upstairs between Rick and Kenny, because this was obviously, Rick's hire, right? This wasn't Kenny's hire. And Kenny had, we found out later on that it was, Kenny's making the decisions. Now it was finally Kenny's guy. Had it gotten so toxic up there that bled down to the manager's office and then infested itself into the locker room. I just am curious if it got so bad between those two guys and with the who's making trades to what, and it got so toxic up there with who's in control and who's in charge that ultimately bled down to the manager's position. And really, if you look at it and you go, this isn't Kenny's guy, we know who's in charge around here. And I just wonder if it undermined Pedro from the start. And I don't know
Yeah.
that you can ever regain it,
Yeah.
but I'm curious to see if now that both of those guys are gone and there's a new guy in charge that really does have Pedro's back 100%, and the one guy that's making decisions wants this guy here, if that changes anything.
Yeah. Two things. I want to get to a couple comments, and then I want to talk about what you just said, because I think you're hitting on something there, and I believe I've read something about that. Mike, I do think not everybody can take the leadership role. You might be onto something. There's some people that are just, speak silently, carry a big stick. Teddy Roosevelt, like,
That's what she said.
hey, I don't know if I can, I can't teach you, or I can't I'm not a leader. I'm going to go out there and play my game, and maybe that is more of the Robert way. And Tyler, I do think Elvis had some leadership qualities. I mean, he was a veteran, and I think he's been through some stuff, and he did a little bit have the makeup, I felt like, of a guy that you could maybe if he talks, he could get guys going. And I think was a positive influence in that clubhouse. Who knows what his future holds. But I thought I read there was an article that came out, postseason, and I don't know if it was Gavin Sheets. I don't want to, don't quote me on that, but some players said something to the effect of, it's going to be nice to hear one message from one person, instead of the division of, well, is this Kenny and Rick, and where are these messages coming from? Who is sending this? And maybe Grifol got confused. I mean, he's like, I don't know who to listen to, and that got all messed up. And now that it's like Getz and Grifol, and we're all from Kansas City, and bring Bannister in, and we can all talk Kansas City and eat barbecue and watch the Chiefs, and we're all together on this. We're good. I know where the messages are coming from.
Yeah, that we're scratching the bottom of the barrel here, Nick. We're just hoping, but that will be interesting to see for sure. And I don't know. I don't know about Pedro. I'd like to think that maybe at this point next year, you and I are eating a lot of crow with our
That would
thoughts
be
about
that would
Pedro
be
Grifol.
wonderful. I'd
I
love
would,
to do that. I have no problem calling myself out on just horrible predictions. And yeah, maybe something, he's got the right chemistry in the coaching department, and the executives are the right mix, and they hit on some, off-season moves, and it's a completely different thing. But so a lot of ifs, man. And I've been playing this if hope, game way too long with this team. So
well, and we will continue to play the if hope game thing for quite some time,
yeah.
Nick, and we're here to share with our fans on
I
the
got
ifs and the hopes.
one more that I think I hit on, and then we've got the Pedro quote of the week.
Oh, goody.
So I read a bunch on Yaz, who I
Mm.
don't think will be with us anymore.
Is he dead?
He's still alive. The guy's still
Okay.
alive. He's just, I don't think, going to be wearing a White Sox uniform in 2024.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I thought was he was going to have an uptick in his offense because the legs were going to be a little bit better.
Mhm.
We read
Yeah.
all these articles about he stayed in Chicago.
Yep.
He was training with like a Blackhawks goalie coach.
Mhm. Mhm.
He had different new ways of the crouching behind home plate. Pedro Grifol helped out a little bit in that, and I think even somebody in the minor leagues, he went to and he talked to someone in the system. And there was a lot that was written about
Yes.
Yasmani Grandal and how he wants to get right. He knows what he needs to do with his legs. And he played 19 more games in 2023. Slash lineup, OPS up, home runs still nowhere near 2021 when he had
Mhm.
that magical few months. Walks were down. He started 15 more games at catcher from 64 to 79. So that was something that was noticeable from the beginning. Is his bat was looking pretty good. He was coming up with the hits, with the offense, and I thought that was a tribute to maybe some of the work he put in the offseason with all the leg conditioning.
Yeah, and you and I, we talked a lot about we talked a lot about the conditioning. We also talked a lot about the banning of the shift, and we thought, man, it's going
Yes,
to be
yeah,
great for Yaz. He's going to have a breakout, maybe not a breakout season, but we should see more of what we got used to back in 2021, just because of the shift. And his power just eroded. I think his body is, regardless of how much work he put in, I think his body is just, it's you can only do so much with it at some point. And I was encouraged, like you were, with hearing what we heard and rebuilding it up and getting the flexibility. But defensively, he still was
no,
not very good behind the plate.
no, a
And
shadow of the
offensively,
amount of games that he
yeah,
caught back in 2019, I think, before the Sox signed him. Yeah,
in the ability to hit the ball out of the ballpark, which is probably what we looked at most, because we're so deprived of left-handed power. We thought, well, if we can get left-handed power from the guy that we signed to the richest contract at one point in White Sox history, that would be pretty good, right? If we can get our left-handed power from this guy and the third baseman that we've been waiting to break out and have a breakout year, we should be pretty good with these two left-handed bats, with the shift being banned and all that kind of stuff. And it just it never materialized like we had hoped, I guess.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well said. We can discuss the contract, until we're blue in the face. But coming off of that season he had with the Brewers, you wanted that guy in your team. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
he had a heck of a year with Milwaukee, and we got an absolute all-star catcher. Switch hitting, a force on a team that we were looking to ready to do something with. So.
Mm-hmm.
Here is your Pedro quote of the week. You had to go back and with the theme of this episode and all of the different predictions and the failures and everything, then we've got to go to November 2022 when Pedro was hired. And here is that. So one of the many magical quotes from the
Oh,
fearless leader himself.
okay.
We will communicate. We will be fundamentally sound. We will play with passion, pride for this uniform. This means something, Grifol said. We will respect the game, our fans, and earn their trust. We will be prepared to control the strike zone on both sides of the ball. We will
Nope.
work hard and play winning
Mm-mm.
baseball
Nope.
every night. We
Nope.
will definitely hold each other accountable. I
No, not
truly
yet.
see great things happening here.
Oh, they are.
I'm really excited to be part of it.
Wow,
That's
no, you're
your
not.
Pedro Grifol quote of the week.
That's amazing that none of that, everything you just said there made everybody stupider. Thank you, Pedro. I mean, none of that came
That
true
was
at all.
said. That literally he said that in November
They didn't
2022.
communicate well.
Yeah.
They didn't come out and kick everybody's ass like you thought. They didn't control the strike zone on both sides. That's
The trust
how
by fans was not earned. It was lost 100%.
Tune in,
Yeah.
as Rick would say. Just tune in. We didn't, because I think viewership was down like 45%.
TV viewership down drastically, which is not a huge surprise with the product.
Yeesh. Well, that is a great quote. That's something that you know what I got from my wife for her birthday? I got this great, it's called Armor. I think it's Armor Prints, and you get a canvas, and I got our theme, the lyrics to our wedding song on this thing. It's beautiful. It's hanging up in our den right now. You should do the same thing with that quote and hang it in your basement. The Pedro Grifol from his press conference. We're going to kick people's asses and we're going to control it. The whole thing you just read there. And you should put that on canvas and put that up on your wall. That'd be great. Add that to the basement.
Just give it just slap it when you come down to the basement, ready to watch some White Sox baseball. Just hit that quote canvas and you're ready. I love it. I think it's an outstanding idea. I think it's
people don't know that you are an artiste. So you could probably make that.
I could probably figure out a way to do that.
If there's that very famous Tom Paints on Twitter that does all the stuff for White. He doesn't hold a candle to you, my friend.
He's a talented guy. I might be able to work my way around this. I definitely want it to be large so everyone can see it, of course, because it's such a powerful.
Who doesn't want it to be large?
It's such a powerful quote. But it's got to be somewhere prominent. That's for sure. Maybe even some extra lighting.
Is it mantle worthy?
It might have to be
with a picture of Pedro right next to it, like the Pope.
With some can lights just directed right on it, and some like an eternal flame that's always going. Just if I can figure that out.
Yes.
So
let me know if your lovely wife lets you put up an eternal flame in your house. That'd be great.
For the reason of this Pedro quote on canvas. I'd like first off, wondering if we could put an eternal flame in. Well, let me tell you the reason why. There's this great quote from Pedro Grifol, the guy that lost 101 games in his first year as manager. Like to put it on a canvas, like to put that on the mantle, and then get an eternal flame. So chew on it. Just think about that for a little bit. And then
I can't wait to talk to your lovely wife the next time I see her on the train and see how that conversation goes. That'll be great.
Pat, we're gonna do this all over again next week, and we'll always figure out some new things to talk about with this organization, this franchise that we just can't get away from.
I can't wait to do it. And thank you everyone for tuning in, listening, and participating in the show. We appreciate you all. We love you all. And it's amazing. People think it's amazing that we do this every week and we talk about White Sox people. I think it's more amazing that people tune in. So thank you very much.
Man, I love it. I knew that there were people that were just as crazy as I am. And the proof is here. Thank you folks so very much for jumping in the comments. Loved it. Pass this podcast along to other Sox fans in your life all off season long. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Check it out, even if it's not in real time. And then the audio is available everywhere. We got a Twitter X, handle @GoodGuysTB. For Pat Hester, I am Nick Murawski. Until next time, go Sox.